Every email, every meeting, every quick chat. Your ancient brain is treating it like a life or death scenario, and it's draining you dry. This is your brain. 200,000 years old, no major updates. Still running software designed for one job. Don't get eaten. Here's the design flaw. Your brain treats emails like predators, meetings like mating rituals, a passive-aggressive text like a tribe declaring war. It's not paranoid. It's just using the only OS it has. You're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because your hardware was built for a world that no longer exists. Have you ever seen a face in the clouds or a tiger hiding in a twisted tree trunk? That's not your imagination being creative. That's your brain doing what it was built to do. Recognize patterns. Your ancestors needed this. Tall grass moving, cooled bee whined. Could be a predator. Your brain didn't wait for proof. It guessed fast. Wrong. 9 times out of 10. But that 10th time. That's why you're here. This ability is in your DNA. It's been there for 200,000 years. No major updates. No iOS upgrades. Your brain is running iOS 1.0. And it works great for Savannah problems. But today, your tigers are emails, Slack messages, tone or voice. That pause before someone replies. Same operating system. Completely different world. So here's the question nobody answers. Honestly, why do some people seem immune? The ones who never look tired, who read the room perfectly, who make it look easy while you're running on empty by 3 p.m. Most productivity advice pretends they have a secret. They just have the same hardware and a different relationship with the drain. Let me show you what's actually happening inside your head. But you don't get 10 emails, you get 200. Plus Slack, plus notifications, plus the ambient noise of modern work. By 3 p.m., your battery is in the red. Not because you're lazy, because you process 200 predictions before lunch. This isn't a flaw. It's design. The problem isn't your brain. The problem is the world your brain is trying to survive. You know that feeling. Your phone goes from 50% to 15% in what feels like minutes. You check no app running. Just drain. Your brain works exactly like that. You don't feel each microcharge. You just wake up at 3 p.m. and suddenly everything is harder. Emails that took 30 seconds at 9 a.m. now take 3 minutes. Decisions that felt obvious before lunch now feel heavy. You're not dumber. Your bandwidth is depleted. Cognitive science calls this executive function fatigue. I call it the tax you never consented to pay. Every decision, every override, let me think about this. Microcharge. You never see the bill until your card is declined. Now, here's what the productivity gurus won't tell you. They sell you willpower as the solution. Just focus. Build discipline. Manage your time better. But willpower doesn't refill your battery. It spends it faster. Because smart people don't have more bandwidth. They just burn it quicker. Analytical minds generate more predictions. More angles. More what-ifs. More should I. Double check this. Every pattern you notice that others miss. Bandwidth. Every assumption you question. Bandwidth. Every email you rewrite 3 times. Bandwidth. So when the battery runs low, and it always runs low, the crash is steeper. The errors feel worse. The cringy mails hit harder. You reread what you sent at 5 p.m. and think, how did I miss that? Not because you're careless. Because you spent your fuel on a trip you didn't know was this long. Here's the irony. The people most likely to recognize this pattern, analytical minds, decision makers, smart people, are also the people who fall into it deepest. Because the mechanism that makes you smart makes you blind to your own depletion. Your pattern recognition runs fast. Predictions arrive instantly. Solutions feel obvious. I just know. This feels like clarity. It's not. It's fluency. It's your brain skipping steps you don't even notice. When bandwidth drops, you skip verification. Not consciously. You don't feel the skip. You feel the same certainty you always feel. Trust the prediction. Act on it. Send the email. Later, how did I miss that? You didn't miss it. You never saw it, because the mechanism that makes you quick also makes you quiet about your own limits. This is the intelligence trap, not slow thinking that fails. Fast thinking that never realizes it guessed. Now, add expertise. The more you know about something, the faster your pattern recognition runs. You've seen this before. You recognize the shape. The answer arrives before the question finishes. This feels like mastery. Sometimes it is. But here's what mastery hides. Expertise automates verification. Beginner looks at problem, checks everything. Doubts. Tests. Slow. Uncomfortable. Accurate. Expert looks at problem. Instant answer. No checks. Fast. Comfortable. Confident. Not because the expert is arrogant, because the pattern arrives so fast. Verification feels redundant. I already know this. And most of the time, you do. But the times you don't, problems that look familiar, but are actually different. Patterns that match old cases, but have new variables. Those are the moments. Expertise becomes a trap. You don't recognize the gap because you don't feel yourself leap. You are already on the other side. Certain, efficient, smooth, wrong. This is not failure of intelligence. It's failure of verification. And the smarter you are, the smoother the skip. iOS 1.0 doesn't know it's outdated. It just runs fast, confident, until the app crashes. Your brain detects structure in chaos. That's its job. Here's the problem. Chaos doesn't have structure. Your brain creates it. Then forgets it created it, then trusts Italiana. Pattern recognition without verification is pattern invention. You connect dots, find meaning, see the bigger picture. But the dots were random. The pattern was yours. The meaning was retrofitted, and you never noticed. System thinking without ground truth becomes system guessing. Abstract thinking without feedback becomes a maze with no exit. Overthinking isn't depth. It's cognitive mechanics stalled in a loop. Your brain predicted a pattern, found evidence, confirmed itself. It never asked, what if I'm wrong? Because asking costs bandwidth, and bandwidth is already low. This is metacognition. Without metacognition, thinking about thinking. But never questioning the thinking itself. You're analyzing your analysis. Checking your checking. Verifying your verification. But you never stepped outside the loop to ask, am I seeing what is there? Or what I expected? Pattern recognition is not intelligence. It's neural efficiency, dressed as insight. Your brain doesn't detect patterns. It predicts them, then retroactively confirms the prediction and calls it observation. You see what you expected to see? You find what you were looking for. You connect dots that confirm the story you've already started. This is the cognitive bias that feels like logic. This is why smart people make confident mistakes. This is iOS 1.0 running smoothly until it crashes. We are all pattern recognition machines. The question isn't whether you see structure in chaos. The question is whether you verify it or just trust it. Remember the question from the beginning. Why do some people seem immune to the mental drain? Here's the answer. They're not. They're running the same iOS 1.0 with different apps. Some people burn bandwidth on email. Others burn it on social performance. Others burn it, worrying about whether they're burning it right. Nobody's immune. They're just depleted in ways you don't see. The difference isn't that they have more fuel, it's that they've accepted the trip is long. So what do you actually do with this? You can't turn it off. It's hardwired. It's automatic. It's survival. Code. But you can recognize when it's running, when a pattern arrives fast and feels obvious. Pause. Not because you're wrong, but because you might be running on efficiency, not accuracy. What would prove me wrong? Not, am I right? That's confirmation bias. Your brain will find evidence. Not let me double check. That's vague. Your brain will check what it wants to check. Ask, what would prove me wrong? If you can't think of anything, you're not being careful. You're being certain. Uncertainty is the enemy of verification. This doesn't make you slower. It makes you calibrated. You're not fighting your brain, you're working with it. Let pattern recognition do its job, generate fast predictions. But don't skip verification just because the prediction feels good. Check. Test. Ask. What am I missing? This costs bandwidth. Yes. But so does fixing mistakes. So does regretting emails. So does wondering, how did I miss that? The question isn't whether you pay the cost. The question is when. Pay before you hit send, or after you read the reply. iOS 1.0 isn't getting an upgrade. Your brain is what it is. 200,000 years of optimization for a world that no longer exists. But you can run it differently, not with more discipline, not with better focus, not with the latest productivity app that promises iOS 15 on iOS 1.0 hardware. Remember what the productivity gurus won't tell you? They're selling apps for iOS 15. You're running iOS 1.0. The apps won't install. The advice won't work. Not because you're broken, because the OS is ancient. This video is that warning label. You know now why pattern recognition feels like truth, even when it glitches. You know why mental bandwidth drains without physical labor. You know why smart people burn fuel faster, skip verification smoother, and cringe harder at errors that arrive with certainty. Knowing this doesn't fix it. The mechanism keeps running, but now when you're exhausted at 3 p.m., you don't call it laziness. When you miss something obvious, you don't call it carelessness. When verification gets skipped, you don't call it stupidity. You call it what it is. Ancient hardware on modern workload. Pattern recognition without bandwidth to verify. iOS 1.0 running apps it was never designed for. Not productivity. Just the warning label you never got. Your brain detects structure in chaos. Who's to remember chaos doesn't have structure? Your brain creates it. Now, you know. There's a paradox we didn't touch. Pattern recognition saved your ancestors. It makes you fast, fluent, and efficient. But what happens when the thing you need to recognize is that you're over-recognizing? Next episode. When pattern recognition becomes overfitting, the moment your greatest cognitive asset becomes your blind spot, when expertise starts manufacturing noise, and why the smartest minds are often the last to notice they've been spinning. Subscribe. You'll see the architecture behind intellectual paralysis, and why sometimes seeing less is the only way to see clearly. No self-help, not therapy, no motivation, just the mechanisms you were never warned about.